given the fact that this is a working meeting, because we were hoping to come up with the criteria for the applications, and it's pretty timely, I'm unsure of what to do about that. We could start with item number 1, but I think you just said that we need Supervisor Wasserman for that. So any suggestions for how we could proceed?
If we call the roll, we could start with item 4.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do that.
Advisory Council Member Voss.
Present.
Lee.
Oh, present. Sorry.
Carter. Vernon. Boyens. Ariano. Madam Chairwoman.
Present.
There are 3 members present. We do not have a quorum. Shall I read in item 4?
It looks like we have Council Member Carter. Can you read him in?
There are 4 members present. We still do not have a quorum.
I know. Well, I'm hopeful we'll have a 5th person come as we go ahead and go to item 4.
Item 4, an update from Economic Development, Department of Administrative Services regarding the budgeted figure for Arts Fund grant awards. This item is for information only. Director Benton, you're muted.
6 years post-pandemic, and I still do that. Good afternoon, everybody. At the last meeting, I shared that Economic Development is taking an administrative fee as part of our work in facilitating and administering the grant funds. I have since found out that we are not taking that funding directly from the CAMPAC dollars this year. And so I was wrong in my last statement. I want to clarify with this group that we do have $307,825 to give out in CAMPAC funding this year. So I wanted to clarify that with everybody, and thanks for your patience as I muddle through taking this on.
Thank you for that information. I'm guessing that's the only part of the agenda that is not an action item other than the one requiring the presence of Supervisor Wasserman.
I could read in item 5. Those are your e-comments. That one's also for information only.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead and do so. Thank you.
Item 5, e-comments submitted to the Cultural, Artistic, and Musical Programming Advisory Council via the County Legislative Information Center CLIC. I did check just now and prior to the meeting convening, and as of this time, there have been no comments received from members of the public.
Okay, thank you for that.
Chairwoman, perhaps with the group that is here, we could have an informational discussion about how we want to handle meeting to vote or score grant applications as they come in. Kelsey, do you need to read that in if we do that before I say anything else?
Yeah, are you thinking item 2?
I am thinking item, well, I guess 3.
The meeting dates?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can read that in. Item 3, determining meeting dates for finalizing Cultural, Artistic, and Musical Programming Advisory Council Arts Fund grant recommendations. This is an action item. However, lacking quorum, you all can consider the item as long as no votes are cast.
So just as an update, since this group has last met, Director Tarantino and I put together the report for the Board of Supervisors. Chairwoman Wren was there, LaShondra Vernon was there, and I'm sorry, I think Antoine Carter was there as well, if I remember correctly. So the board did adopt the resolution that changes the funding now to that two-tiered system, with $20,000 for cornerstone grants, and then those tiered smaller grants for emerging organizations, with that those impact dollars going towards that social cohesion metrics that we've talked about in the past. And so from my perspective, one of the things that this group needs to do is figure out a method to vote on or determine allocations somehow for grant recipients after they submit. If we want to keep on our timeline, we really need all grant funds to be approved by the Board of Supervisors by the September cycle. The Board of Supervisors does not meet again until December, and we need to get the money out the door. It would also change the precedent that we've had in the past if we were to delay it by that. In order for us to be able to meet that September cycle, because we have to submit everything about a month before the board hears it, that's what the board tells us. We need to make all recommendations by about the first week in August to keep on schedule. So backtracking a little bit more, really by the end of this month into July is when the application needs to be live. And so my recommendation is if we could start to figure out how this group wants to make those recommendations, and getting those meetings on the calendar now to actually come together and make those recommendations prior to that first week in August so that we can keep on track. And I do see that Supervisor Wasserman was able to join us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry for my delay, but I definitely want to participate. And once again, sorry for my joining a little late, but I'll catch up quickly.
Supervisor, I was just going over the timeline of the application cycle for this year, highlighting the need for the group to be able to make recommendations by about the first week in August at the latest, in order for us to keep on track with making recommendations to you and the rest of the board in September. And perhaps it would be timely, Kelsey, then to switch over to item 1 if Madam Chairwoman is okay with that, so we can get into a little bit more on the structure.
Should I read an item?
Yes, please go ahead.
Item 1, discussion regarding cultural, artistic, and musical programming advisory council structure. This item is for information only.
So Supervisor Wasserman, are you comfortable talking a little bit about how you foresee this advisory committee structure moving forward?
Yeah, this change I'm introducing that I work with Sandy Saltstein in creating basically addresses the issue if we don't have everybody coming to a meeting, and the issue of quorum, and trying to get a recommendation out of a body that maybe all the members are not present or maybe not have been appointed, but at the same time, the county board needs to have some type of recommendation. So we're trying to reduce the number of members for quorum to come up with a recommendation that is still legitimate and legal, that the full county board can work with. So that's what the purpose of this change would be. And in terms of hearing how the long-term acting of the CAMPAC boards work, I see this as really a benefit for everybody involved, and for people who are there, we don't have to have them. I don't want to waste anybody's time. We appreciate the board and the Parks Committee appreciates the time and effort you put into serving us, and we don't want to waste your time sitting on meetings for people not to attend. So when you're there and you make decisions, we're going to respect it and respect your time. And really, once again, we respect your service to our community. So that's the purpose of this resolution change.
Thank you. I'm not sure if, because you just joined, I'm not sure if you know, we don't have a quorum for this meeting.
Oh.
So you've just touched upon the ongoing problem that we've had. And I really do appreciate everybody on the committee. We are meeting a lot more than in the past. But at the same time, with much gratitude to Kelsey for her efforts, we have been trying to find times that work for people. And I certainly understand that everybody is busy. But we had really hoped that today we would, we put a lot of effort into trying to make sure we had our quorum today. And again, we don't. And I'm sure there's a variety of reasons for that. But we were really hoping to get the criteria decided so that we can get the application process moving. And like I said, we don't have that quorum right now.
I think the benefits, this resolution that we're introducing, and we'll introduce it, I'm actually asking for a co-sponsorship now. I'd like to have it completed potentially in the June cycle and get this thing through the full county board by the end of June. And then we could really, today quorum would be made with the changes in this resolution. So once again, I appreciate the work that Chairwoman Bren and the board is doing and the Campac board's doing. But let me help you on this side of trying to get quorum in a different way. So we'll do it kind of like do a parallel track, and we'll move this thing forward, especially with Kelsey's help too. And let's just get this thing done, and then we won't have. Hopefully, you won't have to deal with quorum issues in the future.
Think you for that. Now I have, Director Benton, go ahead. That's right, your hand is up.
So what I think that means then, so this resolution would be adopted by the Board of Supervisors at the end of June. So then I think that means we're not able to take action items still today, if I understand correctly. And one of the questions I have is, we need to get this application out, at the very latest, the beginning of July. How can we stay on this parallel path and come up with the final criteria and how we want to score applications, noting that these are open meetings right now, anybody could listen in, how we want to handle like managing, scoring the applications, the submissions, and in what format that makes the most sense.
I think this is kind of a legal question. Sandy or Kelsey, what are your thoughts on that?
As long as your meeting is properly noticed, you can meet in whatever format, whether virtually or in person. I don't want to impose on the body, but it might be easier to view and consider applications if we do one of our in-person meetings. As long as I have the ability to notice your agenda, you can pick your format and your dates.
What about noting that these are open meetings? Is that an issue? So, because people would be able to listen in and hear how, the applications are being discussed.
Yeah, so long as I post an agenda. If you're meeting virtually, it needs to stream in our County Legislative Information Center. But if you're meeting in person and your agenda is posted, this stream, we don't have to have the stream up simultaneously. So as long as the agenda is available, if you all wanted to convene together and I notice that in your agenda, you don't need a live stream of that. Because anybody could just walk in the room and sit and observe the meeting and listen.
What do you think of that, Celia?
Well, it's really up to the CAMPAC members. I think, one of my reasons for pushing this, which I've talked to this group before, is I really want the onus of making those decisions to be on this committee, because you all are the experts, I am not, and I want to make sure that everybody feels, empowered to do that moving forward.
And I completely agree with that. That's why I'm here today, and that's why I've even pushed the resolution in the board the way I did, to really empower Chairwoman Wren and really your committee moving forward. But I think in the meantime, I think we should try to even maybe it's not official yet, but we can at least we can proceed with your agenda, try to get as much done as possible, and then when we have this resolution change or we have a quorum, then maybe enact and kind of post-date what you did previously, and then legitimize it in a legal fashion. I mean, that's one route. I don't want to tell you what to do, but at the same time, I definitely want you to move forward and not waste your time. Sure.
I appreciate what everybody's saying, but I'm left wondering how this. My understanding is that we haven't been able to open the application process because of needing to establish the criteria by this committee. And if we need to do that by the beginning of July so that we can start to screen the applicants and get those recommendations to the supervisors to approve, it just feels like the timing would be too tight to try and make sure that we're acknowledging the work we might do today and then legitimize it and get the applications going. I guess I'm not sure I understand how that would work with that tight of a time frame. I mean, I appreciate the suggestion.
Kelsey, could you or Sandy, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts to the chairwoman's statement?
I think I'm with Madam Chairwoman. I wouldn't recommend voting on anything without a quorum on the possibility that the resolution will be passed. I think it might be the wiser decision to proceed under the current rules until that's adopted by the county board. I will say, I think the county board meets June 25th. If we can rush that file upstairs to the office of the county executive and get a signature right away, I mean, we could have that meeting the very next day, June 26th. And that, I understand that leaves Director Benton in still a tight position, but that would be my recommendation.
I think in that scenario, as much as we can openly discuss the items as informational today, so I get a sense of where this group is at, what concerns they have, so we can have a more efficient meeting potentially on the 26th to allow me to prep everything as much as possible beforehand. It would help me.
Would you like to take up item 3 so at least we could get some discussion going about what the will is of the committee for the criteria, Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, please.
Item 2, finalization of Cultural, Artistic, and Musical Programming Advisory Council Arts Fund grant requirements and the process for making recommendations to the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. This is an action item.
All right, Madam Chair, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. All right, this is the draft social cohesion index that I've shared with this group before, but just as a reminder, one of the tensions that I felt and my team has felt in trying to put this together is we want to be as objective as possible. One of the benefits of the way that the grant has been managed in the past, it was very subjective. Either you met the criteria or you didn't. And now with this social cohesion, it feels like we're introducing a level of subjectivity than before. And so as we thought about trying to make it as clear as possible. The draft criteria is as it stands right now. I'll go over it in more detail, but essentially you would fill out your application before, and then there would be this additional section of 3 questions that you need to answer. I think if I understand correctly from this group, you would not need to answer them as a cornerstone. So if you're one of the big 5 organizations, you're automatically allocated that $20,000. Please chime in if anybody does not agree with me on that. I want to make sure I'm crystal clear on that. If you are not one of those cornerstone organizations and you're a tier 2, meaning you're more well-established, then you could try to get this additional impact funding. And so then you would fill out this information. Any questions or clarifications on that before I get into the social cohesion part?
Committee member Voss, council member Voss.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear. So in the past, we had a very rubriced process that was basically prepared prior to our meeting and decision for and additional clarification questions, but it was much more cut and dried in terms of objective measures and rubrics, right? So we were able to then, we had some discussion, I believe, but we didn't have a thorough review over every single applicant because the criteria that was established in the rubric was already pre-populated and provided to us by the county employees that were serving the council. So I just want to clarify. So is our process at this time being suggested that we're reviewing each applicant other than the top candidates, or is it still going to be presented as a qualified rubric, evaluation that we may have some additional questions and we may have some additional evaluations, but it's pretty clear then to the applicant as well as to the council who should be receiving a certain amount or whatever. I guess from a council standpoint and being here, I think I'm the longest, maybe Barbara, you are. I don't know when we came in at the same time or if you beat me or if I beat you, but regardless, it seemed to me that it was best and easiest to be as objective as possible to eliminate any question of subjectivity. And so that is what my concern is at this point. And while we may not have a quorum every time, I don't want to, this is an advisory council based on whatever amount of budget is provided to us to advise on. And I think some of the politics around some of this has been, we need more, larger organizations have more because they have more impact. I mean, there's been a lot of different discussions, right, around the politicized nature of this money that we have no control of in terms of the budget amount. But what we have that's allocated for the specific purpose of allocation recommendation of this group, I want to keep as much of that subjectivity out as possible, because if we're deciding on what the criteria is, and if that is sitting with the committee at this point as approved, I don't want to open that door up again, I guess is what I'm saying. And so I appreciated that it was an objective rubric process in the past, because that did eliminate some of that. And we're advisory, so I want to advise, right, based on the criteria and based on what we know. But I don't want it to become, it's already become very politicized. And honestly, this group is doing what it's been asked to be doing. And so I want to continue to be able to do that as best as we can without entering a lot of subjectivity into the process if possible. So I want to clarify. I mean, are we moving away from the rubric approach and opening the door for more conversation and subjectivity? Because I guess personally, I thought that it was much easier before in having us do what we're being asked to do in advisory.
Member Voss, the group voted on incorporating the social cohesion index, and I've been doing my best in trying to find a way to make it completely objective, and I cannot at this time. So welcome ideas on how to handle that moving forward.
Okay, so that's what I was asking for, kind of the clarification on that, is getting us to a certain point, and then what does that next point look like? Is there a way to make it less subjective? Is there metrics that we can use for data-informed decision-making? Is that something that doesn't belong here? And so I'm just opening a discussion around that because, you know, as a advisor to what we're supposed to be doing, I just want to be sure that we're all clear on what the next thing will be, and also what input you want from us to try to make it less subjective. And maybe that was part of the discussion, and unfortunately, depending on the timing, you know, I'm working and I'm taking time off of my day, so I appreciate the virtual, you know, option to be able to contribute here, but not every meeting can be met if there's a conflict for my primary, right? So I apologize that I missed the original discussion, but I also want to understand where we were. And I read the minutes. You know, I take this seriously, but I want to get a sense for like this metric and the idea behind it from the conversation that has transpired. I guess I'm not sure. If anyone was there that want to like give me a little bit of context around what we're being asked to do now with this particular area, I'd appreciate it.
Dr. Lee, I see your hand up. Do you want to respond to Councilmember Voss, or did you have another question? You're muted.
Trying to unmute. Okay, so I do agree with Supervisor Ross, because in the past, those metrics were very much a part of the grant proposal. We actually had to submit very detailed information about how many people we reached, the populations we reached, all that sort of thing. So if it's part of the proposal, it makes it so much easier. So that's what I would recommend.
I would just respond to say that in previous meetings, we had really tried to have this be more about the, as Director Benton was saying, have it be more about ways to leverage the impact, because we still care about the smaller groups. Honestly, I mean, we've talked about how we've gone from trying to make it more fair for all the groups at the table, but then with the money being reduced, we're also trying to make sure that it's really hard to please everybody. And so we were trying to make it somewhat more subjective, and I do understand that we want to have it be not too subjective. We've had several discussions about this, and I feel like we're trying to find a middle ground, and that is quite challenging, as Director Benton said. Councilmember Carter, do you have any thoughts, because you were at the discussion where we were talking about the, I can't remember the name of the index right now, the social
cohesion.
Thank you. That is the phrase that was eluding me.
Yeah, I think I think trying to figure out how to make sure that the constituents of the county are the largest recipients of the benefits for these services, and just trying to, I think, Madam Chair, I think you hit a lot of it on the head. I think it's trying to find that middle ground of making sure that we make sure people are served. And I don't know, I don't remember fully from those conversations, just because a lot has happened since then. However, I do know that as we talk about larger organizations and we talk about smaller organizations, I think we think about reach and just who is the reach for, and making sure that the constituents who this money, from what I hear, is supposed to be for, are the priority. So I don't know how that is done. I think I would love to hear more about what the rest of this idea is, because I just had questions of how it looks on the end, but I feel like I can't ask those until I hear it all.
Thank you, Councilmember Carter. I really appreciate what you just said, because that reminded me that was one of the aspects of our discussion, that we wanted more information on the outreach. We wanted more. We talked a lot about wanting more bang for the buck, so to speak, because of the fact that the money is less than it has been in the past, and to have more collaborative efforts instead of just giving everybody exactly the same and not being sure of how that was being put to use. And I really do appreciate what Council Members Voss and Lee have said, because at the same time, we don't want to make it so difficult that we're literally sitting there and we're going through all, one by one, and then we have our subjective opinions. I'm not keen on that either. I see Director Benton's hand, and I also see Councilmember Voss's hand.
From my perspective, this group has really two decisions to make based on that. There's this big and little, how big the organization is versus how little, from my opinion, how you want to handle that. That can be a much more objective thing from my perspective on how that's handled. And then two, there's this question of social cohesion, which this group said that they wanted. I don't know how you can get around. You all are the experts, but from my perspective, right, we can whittle it as much as possible, but I do not know how you get around subjectivity when you introduce some mega concept like social cohesion. You just can't. So if it is the will of this group to not have the burden of, advising on, bringing in your subjectivity expertise into this, then I would encourage you to rethink how you want to make that first decision as well.
Councilmember Voss?
Yeah, so I guess appreciate that perspective. I think that it's, if we're talking about impact, I thought that at some point in the past, and so I know we've transitioned from the parks to a different entity. I thought that we were asking for a report at the end, at some point in the past, to tell us what you did with the money and what your impact was. And I know that there's annual reports for all these organizations, but really that was the loop closure. That was like, okay, then if you met this and you did this and you submitted at least a brief report on what you did with this funding, then you became eligible to apply again, right? So I thought that there was some element of accountability that way that helped us to be able to identify what was done with it and the scope of it. I also feel like there was as much on the front end, like are you located in Milwaukee County? How many, what percentage of Milwaukee County residents would be impacted by? I feel like we asked for some of that on the front end in the application at some point in the past. So I don't know that that's changed or not. The third point that I wanted to mention was just in what was sent out. Also, I want to be sure that our message externally is updated. As I looked, it was still on the Milwaukee County Parks and it was still dated 25. And there was an email, if the email went out, that was incorrect information. So I just wanted to be sure that also gets updated because that doesn't reflect well on this group. If we're sending things out or if the information to the external applicants is not updated, at least for this year. So thank you.
I see Dr. Lee's hand and I see Director Benton's hand. Dr. Lee?
Well, in the past, one of the things that we had to do was when we did our reports, of course, was to actually have had some kind of metric for that, where we actually had audience members fill out a questionnaire, fill out a survey. And that was part of the grant proposal as well, that we would have some kind of survey of audience members so that we would make sure that, yes, they were county residents. Yes, they really appreciated the show. Yes, there was definitely an impact. You know, Exfabula, for example, does this kind of survey for every show they do, and it's very effective because they can then show, yes, we did this, 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 and this, and it was all part of the grant. So again, if it's part of the grant proposal itself that we provide something like that, it makes it easier for us, and it makes it easier for council members to make evaluations.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Dr. Benton, Director Benton, I know that your hand is up. I just want to acknowledge the fact that we now have a quorum. Go ahead, Director Benton.
So I can't speak to the impact reporting, but to your point, Member Voss, yes, right. The administration of this program is now under Economic Development and Real Estate Services. How I understand it is right now you can see last year's, this is basically the application criteria. It's done on a form. How I understand from this group is we're not changing like the basic eligibility to your one of your statements, Member Voss. All of that is remaining the same as before, is how I interpreted it. So everything you listed before, would have been listed before, is the same, and then we'd be adding in that social cohesion. So what's different is the way the funding is managed now with this tiered structure, and then that impact funding with that social cohesion identifying it. On the website, yeah, we are taking it over on our website. It can't go live until this board has made the final decisions, which is why it's not updated yet. And so, you know, we have a consultant ready to update our website, but we don't want to go live until everything is correct. And honestly, there's stuff in the back end that we need to do as well. Like we need to update the actual application form, all of that for this group.
Supervisor Wasserman, I see your hand.
Yes, I just want to respond also to the comments you made, Ms. Voss. I see the, Camp Act has had all these changes that came from the county board, and we're the ones who instituted. But what I want to emphasize to you is that the current structure that we passed last week in coming up with this tiered structure was a way to remove the politics from your group, remove the politics from the board, and kind of come up with a structure that really makes sense for everybody involved. So everything you do, there's always going to be politics, but we wanted the purpose of why I came up with that resolution was to protect you and protect Camp Act, preserve its function, and also preserve its independence in terms of making selections and coming up with its own criteria. And the board also knows very clearly that your decisions will be subjective, and there have to be subjective because art is subjective. It's the performing arts are subjective. We're not dealing with just strict math here, but everybody interprets a painting differently or a performance differently. So we understand it as a county board of supervisors. So we want to empower you to make those decisions in whatever fashion you see fit, within reason, obviously. But coming up with this discussion and is we want to empower you. We want you to you understand clearly what we want as a board and what a community wants, and but we want to remove the politics from it. We want you to move forward and give us your best stuff. And I think under this tiered setting that we've created, things should be fine, and you're not going to have an oversight from a board saying, "Oh, we don't like that thing, or we don't like that." we don't want to get involved. We don't want to micromanage you. We want you to manage yourselves within these guidelines that now really that the board has come up with and that the county executive signed off. So, but we wish you the best and we want you to do well. We really appreciate Celia Benton, working with you and, and Kelsley and Sandy. But really, let's see what you come up with. And I don't want to talk any longer. If you have a quorum, you guys can make decisions right now. And I think I'm probably going to I'll be on for a little bit longer, but then I'm going to have to leave. So unless you want me any longer, Chairwoman Wren or anybody else.
Thank you very much for coming, Supervisor Wasserman, and for your comments. Well, should we go ahead and go back to action items now that we have a quorum?
Yeah,
I don't know what number we're on anymore.
I'm thinking I just call the roll to establish that quorum with your permission.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Voss,
Present.
Lee, Councilmember Lee,
Present.
Carter,
Present.
Vernon, Councilmember
Present.
Boynes, Ariano,
Present.
Madam Chairwoman.
Present.
There are 6 members present. We have a quorum. So you had 2 action items. I could read in 2 and 3 together. Take them
Sounds
both up
good to me.
together. Item 2, finalization of cultural, artistic, and musical programming advisory council arts fund grant requirements and the process for making recommendations to the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors. This is an action item. Item 3, determining meeting dates for finalizing cultural, artistic, and musical programming advisory council arts fund grant recommendations. This is an action item.
All right, I'm going to reshare my screen so we can get back into a discussion around the social cohesion index then. So again, the application from last year would be, the same eligibility criteria, and then there would be this impact funding based on this matrix and whatever the will of this CAMPAC committee is for that. So there are 3 questions right now in this draft index. The first is geographic reach. So this board wanted a sense of how well there's integration, I would say, from different people throughout the community, and whether it is from the organization itself going out in and around the community or being able to draw people into their location for different events. And so the questionnaire is the percentage of attendees that reside in Milwaukee County. Then in the second one, it would measure community partnership. So how well there's collaboration from the organization. We defined collaboration quite broadly here. That could be anything from neighborhood organizations to cultural groups, schools, libraries, social service organizations, etc. So again, the idea is within the social cohesion index, how well are you collaborating overall to draw in that sense of cohesion or community. From my personal perspective, these are a little bit more objective. It would be easy, and from what I understand, the organizations that are applying would be able to relatively easily put this information in and measure it. From my personal opinion, it's this last one where I feel like we start to venture more into that subjectivity. And this is around inclusive and accessible programming. From what I recall from this group, we wanted to get a sense of cultural programming. This could be anything from like who you employ and how representative you are as far as your people on your team, to the way you market your events, to like who you're able to touch in your programming and trying to cast a wide inclusive net here. And so the way the question is right now is programs with accessibility as a component using this. And this is where I would really like feedback on, is this in the right path? What types of changes would you like to see made? I'll stop there and see if there are any questions on that.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Vernon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to put in context, and first, thank you. The work that you guys have done on this has been reflective of the conversation, and I appreciate that so much. I think given the size of the impact of the dollar, I think we've gone as far as we should as it pertains to how deep we want them to display and measure that impact. If we add too much more, we should be expecting to make that price tag bigger. So I think that this is good for the size of funding that organizations receive for all sizes of organizations. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Councilmember Vernon. Other thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? I see your hand, Councilmember Floss.
I think it's more, I agree. I think that this has been good work in progress, reflecting the intention. I think this, as you asked that question about this in particular, I think it's about access to programming. So maybe it's a semantic issue. Because I think when people see the word accessibility, they think of ADA and disability exclusively. I think we're talking about equal opportunity and an invitation of inclusive, like an inclusive invitation for the entire community, which includes disability, of course, but also any number of other populations. And so I don't know what the solution is, but I think that that's what, as I read this, maybe a little bit semantic tweaking. And I don't want to get into like rewriting your work, but I think that maybe just a little bit more in that line could be helpful.
Member Voss, I just want to call out what I'm hearing is from your perspective, the inclusivity is really about the programming and less so about like how it's marketed or who's represented in the organization.
I think it's both, though. I think the intention is that we want it to be both. It's like who is involved in the production, but also who is attending the production. So it's on kind of both sides of that is what I think the interest is, and that we want to have a wide variety of like a welcome door with this funding depicted for those who are inclusive and for different populations to attend or participate, but then also like as an entity that they believe and they reflect the people that they serve to the extent possible. And I don't know how to say that, but I think it's on both sides of that.
Thank you. I see Councilmember Arellano's hand.
Yes, thank you for this thorough information on the inclusive and accessibility, where it specifically says accessibility of programming. If we could touch a bit more on not just creating it for people to be for it to be accessible, for example, like creating a ramp, but also accessibility within adaptable tools or like sensory issues, like thinking about like different students now and being inside of a school, we're now seeing a huge hike with students with autism. So what does that look like?
Thank you. I would also add higher amounts of people who are neurodivergent and have different ways of taking in information, and the arts play an important role in terms of inclusivity for people who think and process differently. Do others have comments or questions?
I would say to the extent possible that we could finalize the wording today would keep me on schedule and would be helpful. So to the comment on semantics, Samantha Way, I will take notes and we'll make sure that the language looks good before you vote on it.
Thank you. So I see Councilmember Arellano's hand and then Dr. Lee's hand. And Councilmember Vernon's hand.
Thank you for adding those semantics. I would also like to add that there's a lot of people who speak different languages who do not understand written language. And so, you know, adding into that semantic as far as like, you know, being accessible with different levels of literacy, or maybe, I'm not too sure how to word it, but I do understand there's a great level of parents and students who are just having a very difficult time with literacy.
Great point. Dr. Lee?
Yes, I agree with these amendments to making it very clear the kind of inclusivity we're talking about. You brought up a lot of different facets of this, language, disability, but also where is the program being offered? Is that accessible to grounds? I mean, there are all kinds of things that it would be helpful for people who are filling out the grant proposal to see the different areas that need to be addressed, but they could be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Councilmember Vernon, I saw your hand go down, so I'm not sure.
I dropped it because I saw something addressed in the edits that Celia is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I would add, and I'm not sure of wording, and I think it's just in terms of how mental health needs are increasing in terms of just the world being difficult to be in and the role that the arts play in that. I don't know if just even putting the word mental health, maybe something along the lines of mental health themes being addressed.
From the programming perspective? Or,
yes.
Okay.
I mean, I see disabilities. I mean, one could say physical, emotional, and although disability, I mean, that's a charged word that I think needs to be Councilmember Arellano.
Going back to the language and literacy, even including like oral literacy to be into that might, you know, bring it into the terms of like, we're not saying that literacy it's not bringing it to where literacy doesn't need to just be a written literacy, but it can also be oral. So if there was a way that organizations can like speak upon how oral literacy, whether it's, you know, sharing story through social media, sharing stories of personal experiences of people inside of their events.
Thank you. I would, to what I was saying about disabilities, I wonder if maybe a slash could be put there and the word challenges, or the word, I don't know if the word challenges is enough. If people prefer that the word disability stays in that. I have a lot of clients who have accessibility issues, but prefer empowering language.
Okay, so any issues with then how this is worded right now? just this point here.
Councilmember Carter.
I think I like challenges better. Also too, I know I may be moving ahead. This will be infused within the application and not necessarily like 3 bonus questions afterwards, correct?
How I am envisioning it is, so it's a Microsoft form application. And so we can design it to have some be required answers and some be not required. And so I envision that this social cohesion would be an optional, like extra 3 questions for anybody that felt, wanted to go after that tier 3 funding. And everything else would be the same, right? We have to update the funding structure, but the way it would look would be the same up until this point.
Councilmember Arellano.
Maybe social emotional needs or well-being, lived experiences. I'm just trying to think of other wordings to incorporate in that.
Councilmember Voss. And then Councilmember Vernon.
Okay, I'm taking a stab here. And physical and architectural access, sensory and cognitive access, programmatic and content access, and financial and social access.
I'm sorry, I'm not as fast a typer as you are a speaker.
That's
it was
okay.
Programmatic and
Content access
and financial
and social access. I'm trying to capture what everyone's saying in larger
In 3.
buckets.
Yep, I see what you're saying. So these would be the 3, and then this would
There's-
theoretically.
So yeah, physical and architectural is 1, sensory and cognitive,
Thank you.
programmatic and content, and financial and social. To capture everyone's thoughts, if that's helpful.
That's very helpful, Councilmember Voss. Councilmember Vernon.
Also, double heart for the recommendations from Councilmember Voss. Those were really great. Neutralized buckets to put all of those categories into around access, because that's really what it boils down to is access points. So thank you. And then I just had a bit of a curiosity, and I hope it's not too far off target, of the review process. Just curious about, are there others reviewing, and how will they receive this information as well to do their measurement and scoring? So I'm just checking on process because I just don't recall. Are there other team members or bodies that review other than us before we come to decision-making processes?
So in a scenario where this group decides to vote in this index today, for example, then we would finalize the application, we would release it. We would take on ensuring that they meet the basic eligibility, which I can pull up if that's helpful, but we would take on like ensuring that they meet the basic eligibility for us to be able to fund them. Then that final list would go to this group to then make the funding recommendations.
Thank you so much. Just wanted to be clear on what that process looks like. I think what often happens is when we're providing our bullet points for what we believe needs to be measured, You just want to make sure that our language is translating to anyone else that might be measuring outside of our process. So I appreciate that alignment support.
Dr. Lee, I see your hand.
I just have a question. Would this also apply to the agency setup itself, like the board membership, the mission statement, those kinds of things that are built into the very fabric of the organization?
The way it's designed right now, I believe, is it's reflective of last year. And so, right, because we found it's, we can give money for like what's been proven or right determined based on last year's programming. So if you wanted to call that out, we could add that as a nod in here.
What do people think?
Councilmember Vernon?
I just want to make sure I understand what's being asked. Is this about the makeup of bodies like board and staff and them operating underneath some of these principles or practices? Just want to make sure I understand what's being asked.
Dr. Lee?
Oh, well, I guess that is the question. I'm not sure. In the past, I think there has been questions about our mission, our board, those kinds of things. Is that also part of the program, the application this year? I just don't see it here as yet, but perhaps it's already in there. That's understandable.
I apologize if that's me. I think I'm now unclear.
Okay.
Councilmember Vernon?
I think I understand from Barbara's perspective, this is referring to the applicant's makeup, the question that you're asking for their board, and the amount of members of the board who are coming from diverse spaces. Like, these are the examples of questions that we see on applications sometimes. How diverse is your board makeup? Or how diverse is your staff in a demographic question? Is that what you're getting at, Member Lee?
Yes.
Okay. And to the point of clarification, in our demographic collection, when we're asking for the size of the organization, the amount of the finances, etc., I've often seen it where there's just a question of what's the percentage of ethnicities on your board and on your staff. And then they would be simply responsible for providing the percentage by demographic item that the application itself would list. I don't know that we do that, but I think that is the best way to answer that equity question for an application.
Cool.
Is it okay if we move on to Councilmember Carter? Your hand is still up, Councilmember Vernon, so I wasn't sure if you were done. Go ahead, Councilmember Carter.
I'm done, but I just want to clarify, it was Barbara who brought this up. Is this something that you're recommending that we add? I just want to, because I was helping with the question, but are you recommending that we add that to the demographic questions the applicants have to fill out?
And I just want to remind everybody that this is not the full application. These are the questions that are aligned to the social impact component social cohesion component. And I believe that the standard application would have those questions. I'm assuming that, but I'm based on what we're talking about. These are the extra questions that those who decide to apply for the third tier have to answer. But everyone would have to answer the questions that Councilmember Lee and Vernon are talking about.
That was my understanding as well, because we didn't take any of that away. So we're working, and this is now my question for Director Benton. My understanding, just to piggyback on what Councilmember Carter said, we're just focusing on this aspect and we haven't taken anything out of the template that we still have from the previous year. Or is that incorrect?
Yeah, so let's actually go through that. So a couple of things. One, I added this organizational for Dr. Lee's comment. Again, if this isn't accurate, tell me to change it. How it would be is that people would kind of note this, and then they would have a space where they'd be able to like physically write in and speak to why they should be able to, receive a higher score in this area. Again, that's where it's subjective, because then you have to read what they say and determine how well it fits what you're going for here. And I don't think, sorry, I have to stop sharing and reshare, I think, in order for us to see this, so bear with me. Okay, Dr. Lee, do you want to speak to that before I get into the formal application, since your hand is up? Sorry, Madam Chair.
This seems perfectly, very appropriate.
Thanks. Okay, so let's go through what the application looks like as of last year. This is a PDF that goes over it. So the basic, just to be eligible, they need to be a 501c3 with a 990, located in Milwaukee County. They must have a mission statement or be organized for arts, and performances must be open to the general public. Then beyond that, so this, again, this is from last year, so it goes over the changes in how disbursement is. I'm working under, okay, so now, right, we have this three-tiered system plus the cornerstone. The disbursements will change. The formula will change. To be honest, I don't know what this 2 versus 1 program is. Maybe somebody can fill me in on that. Must pay the performers. CAMPAC's contribution may not exceed 50%. I can't imagine we'll do that in anyone. They must have a board of directors with 5 voting members. I imagine this is a comptroller request for us. So anyone with over 400,000 must submit financials, audited financials. We have the emphasized local talent. At least one performance must meet community cultural events requirements. Again, we are looking at last year, as I understand it, without virtual performances being included. And so to the questions earlier, this is what you would see in a form. So this eligibility, previous funding, how they can maintain capacity, mission statement. Here's the listing of the board of directors, full-time employees, budget, personnel. You don't need me to read this out loud to you, but I'm not seeing anything specific to like board makeup beyond just noting them. So if any of that needed to be changed, this group would need to make that recommendation. And honestly, I'd have to check a resolution to make sure that we could do that without going back to the board.
Thank you. I see Council Member I don't know how to say all that. Dr. Lee's hand, and then I see Council Member Vernon's hand.
I actually meant to withdraw my hand, so I'm not sure on what I would recommend. If it's possible for people to state the ethnicity of their board members or specific things about them, I guess that would be the easiest way for them to include that information.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Vernon, and then Councilmember Voss.
So yeah, I think this is one of those equity questions that institutions that have decided to fully focus on equity primarily have included in all of their applications. And I'm a little bit on the fence about an addition for this, only because of the size of our impact. And, you know, just from reviewer perspective, sometimes the diversity of board based on ethnicity and race is not as important as the capacity to raise funds and support the organization to me. That's my personal view as one voter in the situation. I think it might make sense to give people a box where they can talk about the equity makeup in their organization, both for board and staff, as language, as opposed to making a new category. Like if it's something they can just add as a box as a other, that's a possibility if people want to highlight their board and staff diversity as an asset of the organization. And I don't necessarily think that it has to show up in the old application. It could be a box placed in the social cohesion one. If it makes it easier to implement something like that. And the only reason I'm being like this is, as it pertains to adding too much, is because of the size of the grants. And they're already, most organizations, if they're receiving funding from an equity-focused philanthropy space, they've got this data. So they can produce it in a couple of sentences, right? And it doesn't have to be a whole new question. So it is an option to maybe add a box to say, would you like to share anything about your justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion practices as an organization, and then just leave it there for people to add to increase points. That could be an option to get at the spirit of it without making a change to the core application. Just my initial thoughts listening to the barriers that Celia just mentioned that might make me cringe a little bit from going back into the parks conversation and opening up another wound of politics. So that's an option, to just create a box that allows people to celebrate their diversity, but doesn't make it a mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vernon. Councilmember Voss.
Thank you. I agree. I think that we could just include a box at the bottom and just say, is there anything else that you'd like us to consider with respect to this social cohesion? And then just let them go, you know, and share whatever other metrics or ideas that they want to, you know, it's like the final, you know, opportunity to give us whatever else wasn't on here that'll help you. However, I wanted to mention I have a hard out at 1:30, so if you need me to vote on anything for quorum purposes or whatever, I need to leave very soon, so I wanted to give you that heads up as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Voss. Director Benton.
Just a note on the voting. So for us to stay on schedule, unless you want to put another meeting on the calendar very soon, we need to be able to vote on how you want to handle social cohesion and to set meeting times to make the determination.
Thank you, Director Benton. I don't know if we're ready for any kind of motion, but I want to honor, recognize that we are approaching 1:30.
Would it be helpful if if we saw this whole application, the index one more time, so we can see what it would look like?
Sure.
Okay, so we've got the geographic reach as 1. We have community partnerships as 2. We have inclusive and accessible programming, and right now we have these 4 points here. And within this one, they write down, right, how they think they should be scored and justify it. And there's this optional question on anything else you would like us to consider related to social cohesion.
Questions, comments? Councilmember Brennan?
I will pause if you want to have conversation, but I'm prepared to make a motion to support this if you would like me to proceed. I
I'm
see
happy to
nods,
hear a
so I'll
motion.
take that as a yes. So I make a motion that we accept the updates to the social cohesion questions provided by Celia Benton as is to move forward at this time.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can someone remind me what happens next?
A
If
vote?
you're ready, Madam Chair, I can call the roll on that motion.
Yes, a vote sounds good.
On the motion, Councilmember Voss,
Aye.
Lee, Councilmember
sorry.
Lee,
Yes. Aye, yes.
Carter,
Aye.
Vernon,
Aye.
Ariano,
Aye.
Madam Chairwoman.
Aye.
6 ayes, 0 noes. The motion prevails.
Thank you. I really appreciate everybody's time. And I know we're not completely done. We have to now set a meeting. Director Benton.
Okay, awesome. So how we're tentatively looking at this right now is we would like to be able to release the applications on June 19th and have them open for 4 weeks. So, let me know if there's, I don't know, if you have any problems with that, let me know. I'm also happy to have somebody be a guinea pig and test pilot the form before it goes live would be helpful for me. In this scenario where it's released, I'm sorry, June 18th, because June 19th is a holiday. June 18th, open for 4 weeks, it would close July 9th. So we have essentially between July 13th and July 31st for this group to meet and make a decision. It would probably take us maybe a week to get things ready for you all. So call it the last 2 weeks in July would be ideal for decision making. And what I understand from Supervisor Wasserman, if and Kelsey, if we meet in person, that would mean we would not live stream that meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kelsey.
You can, you have the option to live stream the meeting if you meet here in the courthouse, but if you are meeting in person in some other secondary location, then there wouldn't be a live stream.
What if there was a decision to meet virtually? Does it need to be live streamed for that?
Virtual meetings, we typically recommend the live streaming of those. It's my understanding that if we don't live stream it, we do have to obviously provide a methodology for members of the public to join the meeting if they wanted to observe the proceedings. So, for transparency purposes, that's usually our preference.
Councilmember Voss.
So you need a motion for us to meet in person at the end of July to be determined by poll and availability. Is that acceptable? For now?
Kelsey,
Okay.
does that work for you? I just want to call it, it's been really hard for Kelsey to get quorum. So if there's a way we can make it easier to get these meetings on the calendar, whether or not it's via motion here.
Yeah, I guess It just depends if you guys are planning to meet in person or virtually. If you specify that, obviously, virtual will have more options on the table. If we decide to do in person, we're meeting here at the county courthouse, we're gonna need to stay within business hours. So if there's a preference, I just wanna, I'm sorry, I'm looking for feedback.
Is there an option to meet outside of, like what are our time of day options, I guess? Because part of my challenge is if I'm in a meeting for work and I can't take a lunch like today, then I'm going to miss the meeting. So, and I let you guys know when I have to miss the meeting, but if you need a quorum and if that's a consideration, that's my situation, I guess. I don't have as much control as I'd like to sometimes over the meetings I'm put in.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Well, I would agree that it's so much easier to do this virtually. Personally, I don't have a car. I'd have to have some way to access the meeting. It's so much easier, takes so much less time to actually meet together like this. And I think it's just as effective. We can see each other, we can talk to each other. So that would be my suggestion.
So, we try to keep these within business hours, but I know the council members, your volunteers here, if the only way we can make it work is in evening time, we can certainly do that. If we're doing like a virtual meeting.
I guess that's fine with me. Could you, my motion is to put a poll out with a variety of times of day and see, and schedule a virtual meeting then based on the majority of people. And I would strongly encourage my colleagues to make it a priority and let the personnel know if you cannot make that, if you say yes, right? So I guess that would be my last thing as I'm leaving. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Vernon?
I fully agree with everything Member Voss shared. Also just want to add how frequently we want to meet, and if we can get into some sort of an intentional succession of that desired frequency, that would work really well for me. I'm not partial to the time of the day as much as I'm partial to getting it blocked out as soon as possible because of competing priorities on my calendars. So if we do a meeting poll, can we also determine, are we meeting monthly, are we meeting bi-monthly, are we meeting quarterly, whatever the cadence is, so that we lock in with Kelsey's scheduling on the calendar for all members, and it gets better around consistently showing up. So, and I don't know the best way, if that's an amendment to the previous motion or if that's something for discussion.
I thought I saw someone's hand, but I want to add to what Councilmember Vernon said. It would also help me if we could have some sort of regular, some kind of consistency so as to keep meetings on the calendar. I think it's easier for people to remember. My situation is I'm with clients and I have a lot of control over my schedule, but I also, if a meeting goes late, then I run into that issue myself. Do we have I'm not sure if we now need a second or if we need to. It sounded to me like Councilmember Vernon provided an amendment to the motion made by Councilmember Voss, who has now left. If we could just have a second, or if we need to have that rephrased.
No, I think I got it. Councilmember Vernon, were you seconding that motion?
Yes, along with the amendment. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, with the addition of the regular meeting schedule. Just to add a little bit, you guys, once you finish making your modifications to the applications, you will be seeing way less of us. This has been a very intense 6 months, I would probably say, while we work out the details and the transition and stuff. Once you all finalize your amendments to the application, you get in a process, you might go down to even seeing me as little as 2 times a year, wants to consider the applications, and then maybe a second meeting to, if there's changes or revisions, however it goes. This has been a lot. So I understand the request for a regular meeting cadence, but also what we're doing right now isn't regular. So the cadence will go down to 2, and it sounds like, based on what Director Benton was saying, it would probably end up end of July, and maybe early August, mid-August, something like that, and that would be the end of the matter. I don't know if you want to add to that, Director Benton.
Well, yeah, I would say from the process perspective, yes. Anything beyond that, it's up to this group.
Councilmember Vernon and then Councilmember Arellano.
I will say what I am aware of that's coming down the pike is a couple of cultural plans that other organizations are doing that we may want to hold space for quarterly next year at minimum, just simply because now we have become a little bit more outward facing to the arts and culture community. So I think we should consider being prepared, even though it's going to decrease, being able to hold space as those cultural plans are developing and as they start doing their advocacy work with the county board, us being prepared to respond or participate.
I no longer see any hands up.
Yes, sorry about that.
Oh.
This is Ariano here. I just want to add that in adding toward what was said in the evenings, it does work better just because I teach during the day. However, the school year is ending, which will just give a lot more leeway. So I definitely do appreciate Ms. Evans saying how it would end around early August, just because I have no control over my schedule of what that might look on next year. So right now, while Friday at 12 o'clock does work for me, I can't control what times or what they'll give me for my classes.
Thank you. Are we ready for a motion? Or to complete the motion?
On the motion by Councilmember Voss, as amended and seconded by Councilmember Vernon, Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Vernon.
Aye.
Arellano.
Aye.
Madam Chairwoman.
Aye.
5 ayes, 0 noes. The motion prevails.
Thank you, everyone.
That disposes of your entire agenda, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Really do.
Thank you,
appreciate it.
everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good weekend.
You too.